We try to bring you high-quality educational and informational content every single day. Why do you think the price is having such an anemic time? The news story of the hour. Jump onto the chart. Is this the beginning of a massive financial unraveling? We got to add a little addendum to the show map today. So we start here on the daily. Now, we've been looking at the RSI on Bitcoin's daily chart for the last several days. They always have been, but it's been increasing over the last 50 years since the government has been. Hey guys, what's going on? Jebb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto Live. This is your week daily show where we bring you the latest Bitcoin and cryptocurrency technical, on-chain, and fundamental analysis. And we got a great show lined up for you today. The Bitcoin price, is it going to moon? And if it does, will it be because Nancy Pelosi may be called the bottom and because of a bill that could be coming out in 2023? The government has a very big role to play in the future of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. As much as we look forward to a decentralized future where financial sovereignty is put back in our hands, the simple fact of the matter is the governments of the world have much sway over the US dollar, not just over Bitcoin, not just the individual politicians and what they do and the different trades that they make and the calls that they make and the network that they have and the, let's see, how should we say, too impeccable timing of the markets. We're going to get to that in a second. But they also have huge sway over the regulation and the regulatory clarity that provides on-ramps for different organizations and companies around the world to jump into the cryptocurrency space. We have some very interesting news relating to Nancy Pelosi and short-term price action of Bitcoin and to a bill that could be going to vote in 2023. And if it passes, would be one of the biggest steps forward, one of the biggest leaps forward, in fact, in regulatory clarity and the development of the regulatory frameworks around crypto that we have ever seen, and it would be huge for the price action. In fact, it could be one of the catalytic events that leads us to $100,000 or beyond, and we're going to talk about all of that and more on today's show. Make sure to hit that like button if you are looking forward to today's show, and give a warm welcome in chat to a guest that we have on today, none other than the one and only Frankie Candles. How are you doing, Frankie?
I'm doing great, Jebb. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm super excited to be here.
Absolutely, man. Well, you have grown really quickly. You launched your channel about 4 months ago, and you're already at like 17,000 subscribers. Can you just tell us a little bit about what that journey's been like for you?
Yeah, creeping up on 17K here. Grew a lot faster than I thought. But yeah, man, it's been really interesting. Always loved TA and trading. Been in it, like I would say seriously since I got into crypto seriously in 2017. Really started taking technical analysis and trading seriously at that point. Still was working a job, but really putting those hours in. And then long story short, found my way here down at BitBoy Crypto, and they wanted to start a TA and a trading channel. So they're like, "Hey, Frankie, you want to do it?" And I was like, "Let's go." And rest is history. Here we are.
Boom, good for you, man. I'm super excited for you. And we were just saying before we went on air, your set looks like the same set that we used to have at the old office with the wood panels up. Tim, you remember that, right? Welcome to Tim, who's also always on the show.
What's up, everybody? We're gonna throw it back to Frankie, but this is my last show of the week because I'm headed to Consensus tomorrow. So,
and who's gonna be filling your spot? T-Shroom?
I'm assuming T-Shroom.
I think it's gonna be T-Shroom.
I think T-Shroom.
You guys gonna see some T-Shroom on stream.
Yeah.
There you go. Boom.
Yeah. I might call. I mean, I might call in. I might talk to me. Call in and just let you guys know what's going on in Consensus.
We're taking a caller. He's a weird bearded man. He's somewhere in Texas.
Hanging out with Matt C.
And
the gang. No, but throwing back to Frankie, I was saying before the show, I like the room we had was so small.
It was tiny. That room was terrible.
But I did love the wooden panels. Like that is something I miss. And
I still have
when I was watching Frankie Candle's channel here a couple weeks ago, I was like,
nostalgia.
Reminds me of the good times, the
good old days. Drop a one in chat.
I actually remember seeing that set. Yeah. I actually think I remember.
Well, if I don't know if I'm still in the intro to around the blockchain. I think I am. If you see in the intro, you can actually see the set in the background of that intro. If they haven't changed, I don't know if they've changed it yet or not.
No, I think it's still. I think it's still in there.
I think it's still the same intro. Yeah. Anyway, we're also joined as always by Smay. How you doing, Smay?
I'm doing good, and I would just like to note that I tried to bring the wood panels back. I was vetoed though, so that's not on me anymore. So anyways, I'm doing good. Celtics play tomorrow. Hopefully they can make it back from that horrible loss the other day. But I'm doing good. Back to you, Jebb.
Guys, I got home at 3 o'clock in the morning last night because we were supposed to drive down to Palm Beach from Gainesville, Florida, where we live. to pick up my father-in-law's new van that he bought for his sister-in-law. So we drove down there. Yeah, right? We got there at 11:30 at night. 3 hours away, mind you. We got there at 11:30 at night. Guy comes out. He had to wake up, come out, handed me the keys, got in the van, and I was going to drive it home. My wife was going to drive our car home. Get in the van. Again, this is 3 hours from home, right? Get in, turn the key, nothing. The battery's dead. So we had to turn around and come home with nothing more than a key. So I got home at 2:30, 3 o'clock last night. So I'm running on no sleep, but we have caffeine because this is Coffee and Crypto, so everything's fine. Guys, we're going to jump straight into a story involving Nancy Pelosi and her latest trading disclosure and what implications that may have on Bitcoin. And I quote, "The timing of the Pelosi trades, this includes both the lawmaker and her husband, has been described as impeccable or too impeccable on various occasions." And we're going to talk about all that in a second. But first, I want to throw it back to Smay for some green names.
Oh, yay. This is my favorite part of the show. All right, we got Sultan of Salt, Matt C., Grand Roofing Incorporated, Siobhan Golay, Matt C. again, Catch a Cats, Alien. Yep, that's a name right there. Mitch Shaw, Thomas Post, Siobhan Golay, all of you guys. I love you guys so much. You guys are the best. I'm doing great. Back to you, Jebb.
Good deal. Well, guys, like I said, we're about to jump into this Nancy Pelosi story during our Market Pulse, but first we're going to go to a word from our sponsor, Link2. Guys, we'd like to give a shout out to them, Link2. That's at Link2, linqto.com. They offer the average investor access to the world's top unicorns, aka private companies with greater than $1 billion in valuation. Traditionally, only 2% of the world's accredited investors have had access to these private markets, and those elite investors make an average investment of $7.5 million. But Link2 is democratizing private investment by offering private shares of companies like Ripple, Uphold, Dapper Labs, BitPay, and BlockFi for a minimum as low as $10,000. Given pending recessions, inflation, volatility of public equities markets, and the travesty that happened with Luna, more investors are exploring these private markets. Well, we can't promise that every Link2 listing will go public. The company has a fantastic track record, including exits like Coinbase, Robinhood, SoFi, Marqeta, Innovium, and more. Guys, Link2 is so very powerful because it allows you to get into some of these private companies, especially some of these big tech stocks that are going to absolutely explode before they go public, because by the time a company has gone public and gone IPO, you've already missed out on 90% of the gains the company's ever going to be able to make. So make sure you check them out, Link2, linqto.com, with the link in the description box down below so that you can make some gains on some of these private companies. There is a lot that you can take advantage of down below. Anywho, let's go ahead and jump into this story involving none other than Nancy Pelosi. Are lawmakers good news for Bitcoin now? Maybe the ones who trade stocks. Ooh. A new disclosure showed that the big outperformer of the market, Nancy Pelosi, made big new tech trades that sum up to around $2.1 million. The disclosure shook up many traders on Monday. The U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, financier Paul Pelosi, made a big purchase of Apple call options between $750 and $1.5 million and Microsoft call options between $300,000 and $600,000 on May 24th. The timing of Pelosi trades, this includes both the lawmaker and her husband, has been described as impeccable or too impeccable on various occasions. So, Frankie, I don't know if you have any opinions on Nancy Pelosi. I don't want to put you in a political bind. You don't have to comment on this if you don't want to. But do you have any opinions on Pelosi? And the real reason that we're bringing this up is because if Pelosi has some kind of insider information that Microsoft and Apple are about to go to the upside and tech stocks are correlated with Bitcoin, could this actually mean that, in a way, Nancy Pelosi could be calling a Bitcoin bottom here?
Yeah, I mean, listen, first off, I want to say it's crazy. It's like, you see that, Nancy Pelosi, amazing trader, right? Very, very interesting. But yeah, I mean, listen, I've been saying on my channel for a while, I do think if we have not already bottomed, we are at least pretty close. And that's being indicated on the charts as well, due to some longer time frame bullish signals. Right now, we're getting a little bit of mixed signals, in my opinion. I could share my chart if you guys would like.
Yeah, I think we can do that. Yeah, go for it.
Boom. Here we go. Okay, yeah. So real quick, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but let me try to get this out. How do I move this? There we go. Yeah. So on the longer time frames, such as the weekly, right? So for my TA, I typically use a mix between traditional TA and market cipher. So let me just pull up Bitcoin real quick. So on Bitcoin, on market cipher B, we are pulling a double green dot. Now this has indicated almost perfectly the bottom in the past. In 2018, our last double green dot happened almost exactly right here. If you guys can see, almost marked the bottom perfectly. But, you know, I always urge people to be careful, because in 2013, 2014, we actually had 2 of these green dots pop up. And, you know, so these green dots indicate a bottom, not the bottom. Nonetheless, it is a pretty bullish signal right here. In 2014, you could see we got our first green dot. It thought it was the bottom. We had one last leg down, dropped another, I think about 60%, and then got our second green dot, which marked the actual bottom of that bear market. So, you know, nonetheless, whether we are just going to get this one green dot and bottom out, or if we're going to go ahead and get a second one, I do think it could indicate that if we have not already, and this is not the bottom, if we have not already bottomed out, we could just, you know, maybe come up a little bit, get one more last leg down, get that second green dot, and that would be the bottom. Nonetheless, you know, either way, I think we are getting pretty close. And, you know, this Nancy Pelosi stuff, you know, a lot of things are starting to, you know, a lot of things are starting to add up, right? You know, the technicals, the stories, like you guys are bringing up this Nancy Pelosi thing. It all kind of, you know, it all kind of comes together in beautiful confluence, marking that there could be, you know, like I said, at least that we're very close to a bottom here.
Boom. Well, I love to hear it. Well, let me ask you, Tim, what do you think about this whole Nancy Pelosi story? Do you think that she has some kind of insider information on Microsoft and Apple? And do you think, and we're going to put on some tinfoil hats here, we're going to do the whole aluminum foil. What reference is that from? Tell me that in the chat.
That is,
no, you can't say it. What are you doing?
Is,
it's the chat it's for the chat to do.
Okay, never
mind. Let's put on some aluminum foil.
I know the answer.
I know you know the answer, but the chat might not. Let's put on some tinfoil, aluminum foil, whatever. Keep those brain waves where they belong.
I mean, I don't always get your references, so I feel like this is a special opportunity where I got the reference.
Okay, well,
you know,
30 seconds, let people tell me where the reference from. Anywho, do you think that Nancy Pelosi could know enough whales to know when Bitcoin is going to move, and would we be well off to copy trade her?
You know, actually, no. I don't think she knows enough whales to pinpoint Bitcoin's bottom. I think she knows enough stock. And, you know, the article you just read, it said literally she and her husband invested in Apple literally hours before the M2 chip was announced. Yeah. So she does know, she does have insider information about the tech world. And so,
allegedly, that can be defamation.
You know, allegedly, if they use me in a Nancy Pelosi trial, I will be humbled. I will appear. I will go and I will talk and give my expertise on an article that I read. I know that's going to happen. You know, I don't think she can know that about Bitcoin. And there's nothing about this article that says she's investing in Bitcoin. The point here is to say that we have watched as Bitcoin has stayed closely connected to the tech world. So when we see people like Nancy Pelosi with as much power as she has start to make these calls and start entering in as if there was a bottom in the tech world, that only starts to lean into the logical explanation of, well, is crypto not far behind? And you know, Frankie, what he just laid out, we've talked about on this channel with technical analysis. It's not, you know, as he said, you use traditional and market cipher, and we're starting to see confluences of stories, of charts. We're seeing almost all the indicators start to write some narrative. Now, the question is when. You know, there's still a lot of information as to when this could be a thing that's drawn out for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Who knows the exact timing of it, but there does seem to be a plot that's going on. And I do think I agree with Frankie 100%. I'm not 100% certain that we have officially hit the bottom, but I do think we're close. And I loved seeing those green dots he was showing on Market Cipher. But, you know, one of the ones that I look at is volume. And I've showed you guys several times using volume that the same thing happens in bear markets before, where we'll see a dip accompanied by a large amount of volume, and then we'll come back down to those same levels with less volume, confirming that the market's ready to go up. Those green dots seem to be perfectly correlated with those same points. So that's a really cool look for anyone who uses Market Cipher.
All right, yeah, that is a very cool look, and I was definitely getting some reminders of Kelly, because Frankie, you and one of our analysts, Kelly, both say Confluence a lot in TA. I think if you're going to be a really good analyst, you gotta say Confluence. Like, hey, MACD, green dots, they're in Confluence. If you don't say it, you don't have any street cred. So, Frankie, hopefully you can shed some of your street cred onto me, and you'll be able to share that with us, guys. If you're enjoying today's stream, first of all, make sure to go subscribe to Frankie Candles. We've already put his link in the chat a couple of times. Make sure to go look him up on YouTube. If he's not in the description, I apologize. He should have been. I believe he is.
It's in the description.
He is? Yes, he is. He's at the top of the description. Make sure you guys go and subscribe to Frankie. He's got some great content over there. But we're going to go ahead and jump into some technical analysis. I want to start off with some notes here. Bitcoin drops below $30,000 and risks create bearish engulfing candlestick. Now, this is mainly talking about the daily chart. If we look over here on the daily chart of, not Amazon, I was looking at Amazon there for a second while we were talking. If we look over at Bitcoin here, we can see that there has been a pretty major drop over the last 24 hours. Right now, Bitcoin is trading at $29,556. As we said in that article, it is threatening to build a bearish engulfing candlestick. And if that does happen, then that shows us that the bears have started to take back some of that control. If you'll remember to yesterday's show, we discussed how it's not so much that the bulls are getting stronger that caused us to rally. It's that the bears seem to be getting weaker. And that's a very big difference. If the bulls are getting stronger, then they will continue to push the market to the upside and they'll continue to have the advantage. But if the bears are just taking a water break, then they're going to come back and then you're going to see what happened today. This is kind of what we were warning you guys about yesterday. Look, we may see a rally here, but it looks like more that the bears were just taking a little bit of a breather. And at the moment, that's what we're seeing happen. In fact, we've seen more basically what you would call a Bart Simpson candlestick formation. If you guys remember, for some of you guys that were in the space back in 2018, there were, Frankie, you'll remember this, you've been in since 2017, there were a ton of these patterns going on in late 2018 where Bitcoin would just drop a bunch and then rally a lot. And a lot of times what I found was that was as a result of very low volume, often meaning that there was very low retail investor interest, which in a way could have been signaling that a bottom was getting somewhat close because the order books were getting so thin. Frankie, you said that you got into crypto in 2017. I'm sure you will probably remember a lot of what happened in 2018. Do you see some similarities showing up in the chart and the way that the candles, see what I did there, are moving compared to 2018?
Yeah, absolutely. I talk about this all the time, and I can go ahead and share my screen again here. There are so many similarities between, because I started to, when we got this blood diamond on the weekly chart, I started really talking about a possible, big move to the downside. And, it wasn't just the blood diamond, right? Like I said, I like to use a mix of traditional TA, investigative TA is what I kind of like to call it, and market cipher, right? Like it's all just confirming, right? You want multiple confirmations among different things, right? So, we see the green dot, but that's not, bet the farm. But there's other things, right? We are also at this macro golden pocket, which is also bullish, but to speak to your point about the similarities of 2018, that's kind of what kind of gave me the kind of the edge to be able to short our way down, just because things were very similar when you look at the moving averages, and then let me see. If we come back down to 2017, 2018, and let's go ahead and turn on the 200 moving average. And let me just turn it on real quick. So even and then also I also like to look at the 50. Just there are so many different ways that this is very similar to the 2018 bear market. And when you start to look at the moving averages, once you get stuck behind underneath some of these moving averages, the behavior when it happened in 2018 is very, very similar to how it behaves right now. So we come back to 2017 here. Keep going. We are on the daily here. So you'll see here this blue line. Let me turn this off so we don't get confused. This 200-day moving average here, you could see, once you get stuck underneath this thing, it's kind of just boom, you're just banging your head underneath it, right? Then we kind of wiggled sideways a little bit here, and then a big 50% capitulation. And, I could go on and on about the different ways that this looks similar. Tons of different moving averages are behaving very, very similarly. But, if we just come up here, it's kind of the same thing, right? This was kind of what made me, once we got underneath this 200-day moving average, I do think we're going to struggle underneath here for a little bit. I think people tend to forget that bear markets can be very brutal and boring, and long, and they could feel long. But if you look at I would say look at the 100, the 200-day moving averages, very, very similar behavior on the price action. I would say this is one of the biggest things that I was leaning on when I was telling people that we were going to have a big move down, was the similarities between 2018 and what we're seeing now. The market structure and the actual price action is very eerily similar.
I completely agree with you. I think it's really interesting that you bring up the 200 and the 100. I also think the 50 is pretty useful in this area. Back in 2017, I got into crypto on July 31st, 2017, and I remember one of the first patterns I ever talked about on the channel was how back in 2017, you would see the market rally up, go into a big rally, pull back down below the 50, test the 100, then break above, back test the 50, then go up to the up to a new high, go down, back test the 100, support off the 50, back test, and then it would go into a new high, and then it would just keep doing this trend over and over and over again. And it was after we broke that trend and we started falling below the 100 here in January of 2018, then pulled back down to the 200 in February of 2018. That's when I started saying, hey, look, we're going into a bear market. $20,000 was the top. It took like a month to confirm that, at least in my head. I was only in crypto for 6 months at the time, but that's how we saw that happen. And then Bitcoin kept trying to get above these moving averages, but it would reject off of the 200. It's very important that we pay attention to those moving averages, like you were saying. And in fact, if we just get rid of the 50 here for a second so that we can, have a clear understanding of what's going on here, the 100 crossing below the 200 is actually one of the best signals for confirming that a bear market has started. Now, it is pretty lagging in a lot of cases, but in this case, it actually preceded when we called the bear market on May 6th, I believe it was. It may have been May 9th, when we dropped below 20 down to 25K. We saw the 100 cross below the 200 back on the 6th of February. So the fact that those two have bearish alignment of moving averages, which is something we talk about in Club DeFi and we used to talk about in CT2A back in that product. Bearish alignment of moving averages shows us that we are in a predominantly downtrend. And if we ever do see, well, not if ever, we will more than likely, God willing, see a cross 100 above the 200. When that occurs, that can be an early warning sign that we're going into a bull market. But really quickly here, just want to bring up another article here. Crypto liquidations top $218 million in a day as Bitcoin loses $30,000 support. Let me go ahead and go over here to CoinGlass liquidation data. There were a lot of liquidations that took place relatively recently. You can see here on my screen on June 6th at 2,000 hours, we saw $65 million worth of longs get liquidated. The next hour, we saw 40 million get liquidated. If you look over the course of all of the exchanges, and if you look at some of the shorts that got liquidated, we saw a massive short squeeze that rallied Bitcoin up to 31,500. Massive long squeeze that dropped us all the way down to about 29.5, where we sit right now. Frankie, what do you think this means as far as how thin the order books are? Because I remember seeing all of these liquidations just play out big time in 2018. Would this be another data point to say that we're kind of getting into that second half of 2018 bear market phase? And would that maybe speak to the bottom being, about 6 months away?
Yeah, absolutely. And here, let me go ahead and share my screen. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I just put a video out on my channel kind of talking about this. I like to be very clear when I say this. It's the false top theory. Well, I'm not saying I think this is going to play out, or it's just a lot of times on my channel, I like to look at stuff and, look at the past, compare it to the current price action, and kind of see if we can gather any useful information from it. But there is this theory that, the excitement and, the actual top of this cycle and beginning of the bear market could have actually happened here. Mm-hmm. And, I looked at the false top theory being true. And then I gave that case with supporting evidence. And then I looked at the case where, this second top here in 2021 was actually the top. And I gave supporting evidence for that. And, if this was the top, it would kind of be, indicating that we are closer to the bottom than we would be if this was the top. And the supporting evidence for the fact that we are at the bottom is long. And I'm not saying, again, that I 100% believe we have bottomed out, but I do believe we're close. And the evidence showing that we are at least close to bottoming out is absolutely massive. And just to touch on a couple of those things real quick, like I just said before, we are sitting on top of this macro golden pocket, very, very strong support. We are still continuing to hold it. We are knocking on the door quite a bit here. So that does make me a little bit nervous for possibly breaking through, but nonetheless, very, very strong support. With the green dots printing as well. And then, if you just measure, if this was actually the top, if you measure from here to our current price action right now, it is almost, it's an eerily similar amount of time that we've seen in the previous bull cycles from the top to the bottom. So and then, there is the RSI indicates that this could be the top. Google Analytics, the search analytics for Bitcoin also point to this being the top. The CBBI is indicating that this could have been the top. There are so many things pointing that, we could have possibly topped out here. And I am every day, starting to really, really question if that could be possible more and more every day. But I do traditionally, subscribe to a more traditional view that, the 4-year cycle is still at least somewhat intact. So it's really hard. We're in weird times right now, I do have to say.
So Bitcoin holders, what you're saying is they need to be rooting for the fact that theory of a false top that we just saw here in November, we need to be rooting for that theory to be true for the quicker bull market.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I'm not saying that's going to play out, but it is interesting, especially when you take a completely objective view. Like that's one thing I like to do is like I try to keep emotion out of crypto completely. It has no place, especially as a day trader. You have to be emotionless, right? So when I do this kind of stuff and I try to look at the long-term market and figure out where we could be going, I want to be bullish, all the time, right? We all want crypto to go up, but I don't let that get in my head. So, when I looked at this, I just, bull case, bear case, supporting evidence on both sides. And I'm not going to lie, the evidence in my research was a little bit longer on that false top theory. And that's just me bringing the information, not saying it's going to play out, but it is very, very, very interesting.
Well, that does make a lot of sense. And I actually would wager that either the false top theory or I forget what people are calling it, but basically the theory that Bitcoin was correcting sideways that entire time, which is extremely similar, is probably what we saw play out. As you said, CBBI more or less called that top. Now, CBBI was created after 2018, so it was created so that it would force December 17th, 2017 to be 100, and then also the top December 4th, 2013 to be the top at 100. So it was probably never going to get to exactly 100 on the top, but it did get to 80 at 56,000 on February 20th, and that does seem to have called the top. It was much higher than it was on October 25th. As you said, search traffic was down. There is a strong argument to be made that we could have actually topped out in February of last year. If that were the case, along with the halving cycle, 4-year cycle theory, we could be getting closer to that bottom. But Frankie, that's what we got time for today. We are going to go ahead and send you off. Thank you so very much.
Do you mind if I ask him one last question?
You sure can.
The trader in me's got to ask.
Go for it.
The reason I've been watching him is watching his trading journey, comparing the stories. So my question for you, it's a couple different questions in here. One, I was watching your channel where you were in a short and you were a little concerned that you might get liquidated in the short, but you, like a smart trader should, said, hey, if I get liquidated, I set my risk there. I'm okay with losing it. Are you still in that short is the first question. And then do you believe that we will be going down from here, potentially back down to 25,000 or even maybe 22 or 20? Or do you think we go up first before we see another dip?
Yeah, sure. So great questions. So I actually did wind up staying in that short, and I can actually pull it up for you right here because I try to keep the receipts. Is my screen? I think can you guys see my screen here?
Yes.
Yeah, I see your chart right now.
Beautiful. So I think the trade you were talking about was this ETH short. I actually wound up being in for quite some time. I don't like how this doesn't show percentages, but it was over 100% on that. And then it might have been that ETH trade or this Bitcoin trade here. But I did hold them. They were winners. And if anybody's interested, I am actually currently in a trade. If I can. Let me see if I can get back to it here. Real quick, don't want to take up too much time, but I am currently in an ETH short last night. Really proud of my Discord recently. We've been crushing it in there. Currently in an ETH trade here. Already took a little bit of profit out, using pretty low leverage here, about 4x leverage, up about 25%. Was able to call that on my stream. So super, super happy about that.
Nice.
And then, short-term kind of price prediction here. I don't really like to make predictions, but like you guys were talking about, these Bart Simpson tops have been absolutely awesome. I've been loving them. They're very clear. And when they happen at resistance, they reverse. So I would say there are some bearish things popping up on the chart. I don't want to take up too much time, but there are some bearish things popping up on the chart where I do think we might be able to come down a little lower, but I don't think it's going to be anything too crazy. You'd think the relief rally is right around the corner though, right? I've been waiting for this relief rally.
True.
Yeah, that's what we think is going to happen. We think that there's going to be a bull trap up to probably about 35, 36, 37, somewhere in that range, then probably correct down. And then from there over the next several months, we'll probably see that bottom. But Frankie, again, thank you so very much for coming on. We are so glad that you're on, and we hope that you'll be able to come back soon. Guys, make sure to go and subscribe to him. Frankie, any final thoughts before we wrap it out?
Nothing. Set your stop losses, set your take
Yes.
profits. Follow my YouTube channel, Frankie Candles. Thank you so much for having me on, guys. This was awesome. Had a blast.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Frankie. We look forward to seeing you back on, hopefully sometime soon. But, Tim, we're going to go ahead and read some super chats.
Yeah, we got a couple super chats here. And by Frankie, thank you so much.
Thank you, Frankie.
You know, so one of them was just a donation from Luke Zaldana. Just wanted to give. So thank you so much, Luke. He then gave again. And this is, I'm so glad he said this because, you know, I'm so glad to have Frankie on today. Obviously that, you know, I didn't do any technical analysis today. However, he said, we are seeing a green 9 flash on the weekly, and you're 100% correct. On the Bitcoin chart, we are seeing a weekly 9 flash. Now, you can go to my screen real quick here, Smay. There's something that you guys need to know about this. There is a good and there is a bad. And here is what it is. The good news is that is a bullish 9 flash. We call it a green 9 flash, even though the color of it is red. That it indicates that there's been a lot of pressure to the downside and it's time to reverse. Here is the problem. And this isn't perfect, so I'm hoping that this is an outlier. But when you do not close this last candle below the 7 and the 6, which at the moment we're below the 6, but if we have any kind of rally, we'll close above it. A lot of times that means that you can continue to move down to the downside. Like when you guys see the 9 flash and then the price continues in a direction, a lot of times it's because there wasn't a confirmation close above or below the 6 and the 7 marks. This was a really cool thing I was researching about TD sequential. It's not perfect. I'm hoping this is an outlier and it still marks a correction back to the upside. Again, I even think there's a lot of things supporting that, but it is still telling a story. There is a potential, even with this 9 flash, we could continue to the downside to have a weekly close lower than this 7 candle right here at 29,485. If we close below there, that's when I would say with confidence, hey, now it's time to have a little reversal back to the upside.
Boom. There you go, guys. We will definitely be keeping an eye on that 9 flash win, and if that does close, and it probably will close as a green, we would have to see quite a big rally for it to not. And even if we did see a big rally, then that would still kind of be sending us the same signal. So good deal right there. We're going to go ahead and bring a word from one of our sponsors, and then we're going to jump into our discussion. Guys, we're super excited to be sponsored by Hedge. They are a payroll conversion solution that allows users to automatically convert their pay, i.e. W-2, 1099, commission, etc., from fiat to cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin via direct deposit. It eliminates the need for the traditional exchange experience and streamlines the process from pay to crypto wallet in one seamless application. Their non-intrusive design enables companies to keep their current process flow and HR service providers with no setup fees. They release custody of assets the same day as payment, as well as they have the freedom to send those assets to any wallet. They believe in the decentralized aspect crypto brings and want to maintain those values by allowing individuals to use their assets as they please. They are a great company, and if you are the employer or if you are the employee, you can use Hedge and you can set them up with your own bank account through them where your direct deposit will be deposited. Then they will automatically convert some of it into Bitcoin and crypto. Then they can automatically route that to a wallet for you, and then you can do a transfer for your pay to another bank account if you choose. It automates the entire dollar cost averaging purchase system. Saves you out on a lot of fees. It's going to save you a lot of money from using recurring purchases on Coinbase. It's going to save you a lot of headache from having to set all of that up and worrying about whether your bank account got linked or unlinked. Make sure you check out hedge.io. Links in the description box down below. And check out the video I have with their founder, David Schwartz. Really have a lot of respect for that guy and his testimony. Check them out, link below. But we're going to go ahead and jump into our discussion here. What's the big idea, huh? Big idea. I still feel like there's a dude in Brooklyn that was about to get hit by a cab. Hey, what's the big idea, man? Come on now, I dropped my coffee. I don't know. That probably doesn't sound like. I'd have to get Kelly on here to show me how to talk like that.
It's also like from the 70s, I think.
I know, yeah. It's like what's that guy's name that was in I don't know. Some actor, I forgot his name. What's the big idea? The U.S. government is providing regulatory clarity. That's the big idea. We want to go ahead and jump on over to my screen here. There is a bill that has been proposed in a bipartisan way. That's a pretty big deal. Key U.S. senators introduced crypto bill outlining sweeping plans for future rules. Now, you might read this headline and think, oh gosh, no, my crypto, they're coming for it. I'm going to have to hide it in a tin can, in a ledger. Affiliate link in the description box down below, and bury it in the backyard. No, don't. That's not what we're talking about. This is actually potentially very, very good for cryptocurrency. Let's go ahead and read here a little bit. A wide-reaching bipartisan crypto bill finally emerged Tuesday.
Oh my God!
When I refresh,
I think we're back.
We're back?
I think we're back.
Hey, we got some really funny
Wait,
chats here, guys.
Give it a second. Give it a second. Give it a second. It says we're back.
We're
but
back.
I want to make sure. It's still not showing up on my YouTube end that we're
I
back.
think we're back. I see it over here.
I mean,
I'm pretty
people
sure
are
we're back.
saying
All right,
I got to
all right.
read some of these chats real quick, and then we're going to jump back into it. Nancy Pelosi shut down the channel, hacked by the SEC. Jebb needs to get off the Solana network. These are all, keep them coming, guys. These are hilarious. Let's go ahead and jump back into this article over here. What I was trying to say before, I don't know, Nancy Pelosi hacked us or the SEC took us down, whatever happened. Their bill would liberate small-scale purchases of goods and services from the mire of tax implications by making it all tax-free on transactions less than $200. What does that mean? Well, right now, using crypto as a currency is very difficult because every time you transact it, that is a capital gains expenditure, and that needs to be logged and told to the IRS and taxed. That makes it that you're able to use your Bitcoin for small-scale
God.
purchases.
It did it again.
It's doing it again.
Solana network. Oh, man. Gary Gensler is
This
hacking
time
you.
it's not even actually saying it's on YouTube then. I mean,
SEC
it
broke
does,
it.
this time it's not even saying it's on our
Do
stream.
Kwon's revenge. McDonald's Wi-Fi is slow.
Are we,
That's pretty funny.
Gosh. Are we
I think
back?
we're back. We're back. I
back.
see it right now.
This is
Let's go ahead and
ridiculous.
jump back into this. What I'm trying to say here, guys, when we're getting taken down is that if you want Bitcoin to be able to be used as a daily driver currency, then you, first of all, need to not have these massive tax implications that make it very difficult to utilize. So this is a very big part of this bill. If this goes through, having tax-free, it being capital gains tax-free on transactions less than $200 would be a big, big deal. But I also want to jump down here a little bit and read a couple of the other key points here. First and foremost, you can see, I believe it is right here. It's somewhere in here. I'll just read from our notes because I copy and pasted it. This bill would set new federal law for stable coins. It would set taxes on small scale. It would change taxes for small scale payments and jurisdiction of regulators. So the first point there is that this would be also changing the way that stable coins are regulated. You can see this right here. This far-reaching legislation attempts to tackle the most significant questions hanging over digital assets. That is music to the ears of anybody who invests in crypto because regulatory issues are one of the biggest hurdles to mass adoption of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. If we don't get past some of these issues, it is going to make it far harder for organizations and institutions to get into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency because they don't know how they're going to be regulated, they don't know how they're going to be taxed, and they don't know who they're accountable to. But if we have a bill like this get passed that clarifies these things, then that is going to open the floodgates, literally, for a massive amount of adoption to Bitcoin. This is something that Thomas Lee, over at Fundstrat, has been saying for half a decade. Regulatory clarity, regulatory clarity, regulatory clarity, regulatory clarity. You need to have it or you're not going to see mass adoption. This bill would bring about some of the biggest answers to some of the biggest questions in the regulation of crypto to date, answering those uncertainties that keep the fledgling financial sector from maturing. Now, another part of this bill that's important is that this would actually give the Commodities Futures Trading Commission authority over spot markets in the cryptocurrency markets. Right now, there's a big debate going on about who's going to have jurisdiction over different cryptocurrencies, and it's who's going to have jurisdiction over individual cryptocurrencies. Crypto is not considered its own sector with its own regulatory governing body like securities are or commodities are. It instead is playing hot potato with who's going to regulate it, the CFTC or the Securities and Exchange Commission. Luckily, we know that Bitcoin is a commodity. Gary Gensler and the chair of the CFTC are both in agreement on that. But the rest of cryptocurrency, there is a lot of gray area. Their so-called Responsible Financial Innovation Act creates regulatory clarity for agencies charged with supervising digital asset markets, provides a strong, tailored regulatory framework for stablecoins, and integrates digital assets into our existing banking laws. You can see right here, it would define the terrain between crypto securities and commodities. This does imply that some cryptos would be listed as securities, and quite frankly, I would agree with that assertion. I think that there are a lot of cryptocurrencies that under current securities definitions would be classified as securities if those regulations were applied using a traditional framework. Now, I don't think that a traditional framework should be applied to crypto, but if you did apply a traditional framework, a lot of cryptos would be considered securities. Bitcoin is not one of those, and commodities. Allowing token issuers to know beforehand what they're launching based on the purpose of the asset and the rights or powers it conveys to the consumer. The market envisioned in this bill is dominated by commodities, which is good because for it to be a commodity, it needs to be highly decentralized. So that's actually a very good thing. The way I'm reading this bill tells me that the people that are proposing this at least actually have a pretty decent understanding of crypto, or they have people talking in their ear that do. This does not seem like one of those bills that's put forward out of ignorance. Now, I'm not saying they're crypto experts, but
this does seem to be a proposal that is put forward with at least some understanding of crypto. This would include most of the big names in crypto, such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, and dozens of other tokens with significant market share that would fall into the definition of ancillary assets overseen by the CFTC. This would also give the CFTC authority over the spot markets and crypto commodities as sought by agency chief Rustin Benham. This would also carve out key new power for the federal watchdog that doesn't now have much reach into cash markets. Tim, this bill is probably not going anywhere until at least 2023. It even says so here in this article. But if we did see the tax implications on small cryptocurrency transactions come down, and we did see regulatory clarity over who and how the federal government is going to be regulating crypto, what impact would that have on this market?
I mean, it changes the game to make sure that you have clarity on it. I think there's a lot of people. It's not just institutions that have a lack of clarity on how you use crypto. It's also the retail investor. So having some clarity and ease of mind, saying, do I have to calculate my taxes based off of purchases? You know, one thing you talk about the table, like you guys know, made a video the other day where I purchased a burrito with Bitcoin because of the trend. Long story short, I ended up paying like $50 for it just to make the video to show you it could happen. But technically speaking, I'm going to have to calculate that on my taxes. It's not that big of a deal. I'll figure it out. But it is stupid and it's kind of particular. And so knowing that you could actually utilize crypto, and again, I know a lot of people are out there saying, I'm not going to spend my crypto, specifically my Bitcoin, on anything out there. But guess what? Until we start seeing things like that happen, and guess what? There also will be people who do that. You cannot show the liquidity of Bitcoin, the pure use case for it to outdo currency until people use it in a currency fashion. I do think, let's say this bill goes through as it is intended, it could be a massive adoption story for the use case of Bitcoin as a currency with allowing people to actually go buy their groceries. And, they have the ability to buy with their groceries right now, but there's a little bit of a headache. There's a little bit of a, what's the tax implications here? This would actually allow them to do it with that fear kind of relieved.
One of the last things I want to mention in this bill is that the senators also suggest something called an industry sandbox, in which regulators let crypto firms test new products on a limited scale and duration. Now, you might hear that and say, huh? That's very scary. I don't know if I like that. Shouldn't we be able to do that anyway? The thing that you have to keep in mind is the regulation is coming. Period. Winter is coming, guys. It's not going to be bad, but I'm just using the analogy. It is going to happen. Full stop. Death and taxes, those are certain. And regulation tax is a form of a regulation. It's coming, okay? So we're going to see this this come to pass. Now, what we want to see happen is we want to see our cryptocurrencies as decentralized as possible. And then when they are decentralized fully, and I would say there's only one cryptocurrency right now that is fully decentralized, and that would be Bitcoin as far as big power players. Even Ethereum and Cardano have certain elements of centralization. They're small, but they do have them. Bitcoin is the only one that's truly decentralized. The good news is that when we build a decentralized network, it is like a virus. It cannot be stopped. If you want to build something that is above the regulatory power of the government, then build it fully decentralized. But if you're going to leave centralized aspects in it, then you're going to be subject to regulation. Now, even if you're fully decentralized, you are still going to have regulations that are going to be tried to apply to you. But regulation is if you want to get around regulation, first of all, do it in a legal way, but second of all, do it decentralized. If you're going to build something centralized, then you got to play by the centralized rules. Want to know why we want to build things decentralized? Because we want to make our own standard on these things. We want to take power back into our hands and have financial sovereignty over these markets. Decentralization is the only way to do that, and that's why I'm such a stickler about it and why I don't like when projects throw it out the window to make quick cash. Solana. In light of recent dramatic collapses of Terra UST, one closely examined aspect of the bill will be its move towards 100% reserve asset type and detailed disclosure requirements for all payment stablecoin issuers. This is a very interesting letterhead right here, because what this means is that stablecoins would have to have 100% reserves, as they should, and two, they would have detailed disclosure requirements, which would basically mean that stablecoins would likely end up being regulated something like securities. One of the things that securities deal with right now are massive amounts of disclosures. When we interviewed Michael Saylor on the channel, he talked about how his $5 billion company, MicroStrategy, spends $10 million a year preparing disclosures for the Securities and Exchange Commission. We could end up seeing something similar happen for stablecoins, and frankly, you might not like that, and I'm not saying whether that's a good thing or not, but it might help stop something like what happened to Terra USD. However, what happened to Terra USD was a learning experience for the space, and we should make sure we're taking those lessons. There would be a new framework for banks and credit unions to issue stablecoins. Interesting. But issuers wouldn't have to become depository institutions. The lawmakers insist that existing stablecoin issuers and new entrants into the market have an adequate opportunity to compete with existing banks and credit unions. Now, that is an idealistic statement. Hopefully that remains true, but time will tell on that. Here are the big points of this article and of this bill. Again, this would probably not be going to vote or not even to debate within the next year. This is something that will probably take place later on in 2023. But the big story here, number one, tax-free on transactions less than $200. We're talking capital gains taxes here. They would grant new powers to the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, which would hopefully enable more regulatory clarity, enabling more organizations and institutions to on-ramp onto Bitcoin. And three, there would be new federal law for stablecoins, which would hopefully mean that the stablecoins would not have shady histories about whether or not they're fully backed and would not completely collapse overnight. All of that said, regulation is neither a good thing nor a bad thing. However, the heart behind it can be a good thing or a bad thing. We want Bitcoin and cryptocurrency to succeed and thrive for the sake of the people that use it. And if we're going to see that occur, then we do need to see regulatory clarity, but we also need to make sure that the regulation that comes in is conducive to the growth of this industry. If you're in the United States, you do have a voice. And if you don't like something that's going on Capitol Hill, you have every right to email, call, text, go knock on the door of their office of your senator or of your House of Representatives member. Make sure your voice is heard, because the next 8 years, the rest of this decade, are going to lay a foundation for 100 years of future industry and regulation of the cryptocurrency sector. So this is very important that we keep up to date on what's going on with the regulation of crypto, and that we are making sure that our voices are heard, because we do live in a Republican democracy, in a democratic republic, and we want to make sure that we are having our voices heard on these things. With all of that said, Tim, why do you think all of this matters? Why should we be paying attention to this bill and bills like it?
Well, you know, as we've kind of hinted, not only in this stream, but we've been talking about this now for a long time. The government's role, like it or hate it, love it or hate it, whatever, you know, when people hear the word regulation, we decided a long time ago it's the same as if they heard the word moist. They don't like it. It's a gross word. That's throwback to Smay. You know, that was a funny episode. Anyway.
That was.
People don't like it, but guess what? It's part of what's going to happen. It's a necessary evil or it's a necessary good, depending on how you're looking at it. Either way, it's time to stop fighting regulation and understand, all right, let's get involved and make sure our voice is heard when the people who are deciding the regulation actually make these decisions. And the government's going to have a massive factor, and it's going to have a massive say as to how this market will move. And we're watching that with the stories like Nancy Pelosi. This is a politician with a whole lot of power, with a whole lot of authority, who might have some insider information based off of her transactions. But look at that. When she makes decisions and she invests in things, coincidentally, every time she purchases, it seems like that thing seems to go up. And guess what? That is what we're seeing in the short term. And then we look at bills like this, while it might not affect us for a while, because this is something that's they're just discussing right now. We're pushing this off more than likely into 2023 before they make any hard decisions. This determines how you can move forward with your Bitcoin, your crypto holdings, to make sure you're using them for your financial sovereignty. So you can fight the government, you can yell at them, you can scream at them, or you can pay attention, get as involved as much as you can, and watch what happens and respond accordingly.
So, guys, this bill almost sounds too good to be true, and that probably is the case. Here's the thing. All crypto is being regulated as a commodity and being decentralized, and then having, you know, taxes. First of all, not having to pay capital gains taxes on currency transactions under $200 paves the way for Bitcoin being used as a currency fully and not having any capital gains transactions. That's a reach, and that could take a decade to occur, but that is the first step in moving towards that direction. So this is very, very important. That being said, there are some concerns. First and foremost, how will this vote pass and when? You know, could this actually be passing during the bull market? If we're talking about this not being, you know, even debated on until 2023, and then maybe not even passed till late 2023, could this bill actually get passed during the 2023 bull market? I do believe we'll be in a bull market in 2023. And if this bill does get voted on and passed in 2023, could that, Tim, be a catalytic event that could drive Bitcoin up to $100,000 based on market conditions at that time?
If it holds as it is, again, I think we're going to talk about that here in a second, but you know, if it holds as it is, it could do that. I don't expect it to look the exact same here in 8-9 months as it does right now.
I agree with you. And if it does get passed as a bill that is very beneficial to crypto, then yes, I would say it would be a catalytic event that would help Bitcoin to move to the upside big time. By the way, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new here. Also, shout out to everybody who came over from Altcoin Daily's channel. Thank you very much to Altcoin Daily for the interview that went up on the channel yesterday. And there's also one going up today on his channel. So make sure you check out the Altcoin Daily brothers and their channel. Thank you if you are new here from them. Hit that subscribe button, like the video. Let's see if we can't get to 1,000 likes. But how much is this bill going to get trimmed down and changed? Because one of the big things that we're running into is that this is a bill in the U.S. government. You know what happens with a bill? It gets introduced with 10 pages. Before you know it, everybody's had their 2 cents in. And it's a bill about, I don't know, the interstate highway system. And some dude says, oh, yeah, but, you know, there's too many cows in my district. Can you add a provision in here that there's only able to be so many cows per human in my district over here? But I thought this was about the interstate highway system. It is. But I need this so I get reelected. That's kind of what goes on up here. Tim, how much is this bill going to get trimmed down and changed?
Yeah. Well, you know, we talked about it in the planning meeting this morning. Before people get crazy excited about this bill, remember Elizabeth Warren also kind of wanted to create her own bill where she was very anti-crypto, anti-Bitcoin. She's very afraid, very scared. In the same way, I didn't think that people should FUD out because someone in power was saying, I don't really like crypto. You also shouldn't get crazy excited just because we have politicians coming out and saying they do like it. For example, you know, one of the things that I do think is going to be, it's going to be really big that it stays in. I think it could, but that key issue, I think the thing that most retail investors and the average person can take away is that $200 tax-free ability to spend, meaning you don't have to worry about capital gains. I think that's really big that stays in, but there's no guarantee it will. And if it doesn't stay in, even though technically this will be the same bill with the same level, you know, there's, you know, they have compromise and they adjust it and they redo everything. It'll look like a completely different bill. The part that I'm really concerned about, and I want to see how it plays out, is especially when it relates to stablecoins. And yes, I love the fact that what they're going to do with stablecoins is kind of make it very hard where they treat it like a security, and the projects have to have very good reasons to exist. My question is, what is going to happen when the politicians who are all for CBDCs start to get involved? Because those politicians are going to very much be incentivized to fight any type of stable coins legality whatsoever. They are going to heavily be pushing to discourage stable coins of decentralized natures, and they're going to want to push the CBDC. So that's the one that I'm probably the most concerned that would stay in here. I actually think there's a good chance that $200 issue, that $200 tax-free spending, that might make it all the way through. And that's the one that everyone's going to pay attention to and say, oh, that's really cool. I love that. Watch the stablecoin one, though. That's the really interesting one. Watch to see which politicians and how many people go to fight that one for the sake of pushing the CBDC. And that, the more I think about it, could have even larger implications than the fact that we're going to legalize and equip Bitcoin and cryptos to be utilized. That is good. I love it. But CBDCs scare me. And the way that politicians handle CBDCs and discourage and shoot down stablecoins, that scares me. That's what I'm keeping my eyes on with this bill probably the most.
So one of the reasons I love Bitcoin is the answer to this question. Has the government figured out how Bitcoin, the phenomena, will work to their advantage? Well, that actually leads us straight into our application here of this show. Bitcoin is becoming a populist voting issue. Let me say that again. Bitcoin is becoming a populist voting issue. You know, I've been saying for years, I've been thinking for years, and, you know, trying to show people this for years, that our political system is set up in such a weird way. What I would love to see is all the authoritarians that are in our government, that are in our that are politicians, get outed for what they are, authoritarians. And there are a lot of them. And the thing I love about Bitcoin is that if you're an authoritarian, you don't like Bitcoin. It just shines such a bright light on your authoritarian tendencies, if that's what you are. If you are this giant government person who thinks that government can solve everything, then Bitcoin shines a light on that, because government screwed up the US dollar. They created it, and then through a lot of different things, helped it to become the biggest currency in the world, and are now destroying it. It doesn't work. One of the reasons I love Bitcoin is because it shines a light on authoritarians. So exactly what Tim was saying, there are going to be people that come out against it because they're for CBDCs. But here's the thing. When you are talking about Bitcoin, the authoritarians can't hide, because Bitcoin is the most libertarian technological development that we've probably ever seen. because it puts the hands back in the power of the people. We stand for financial sovereignty. That means you, not your government, having control over your finances and your financial systems, because you are the person who best understands how to use your currency. I've joked for a long time. We need to pay taxes because the government knows how to waste our money better than we do. You know how to spend your money. You are the best equipped to do that. Now, sure, we all need to learn, and we need to go out of our way to learn more, but the government doesn't know what's best for you. They don't. You do. Now, you might be wrong from time to time, but you can educate yourself. Put the power back in your hands. Stop letting other people do your thinking for you. Stop letting other people inflate your currency into oblivion, and start using Bitcoin. Start thinking for yourself. That's why we love Bitcoin. Here's the application. Bitcoin is becoming a populist voting issue. And the reason you're seeing it reach across the aisle into Republican and Democrat is because there are small government libertarian people that want to empower the individual, that are individualists on both sides of the aisle. But we're so caught up calling ourselves Republican or Democrat or conservative or liberal or left or right that we forgot that the size of the government is a big part of that. That being an individual is what the country and what the free modern world was founded on. So my question to you is, are you going to be paying attention to who stands for Bitcoin and who stands for CBDCs and these big government coins? Because CBDCs, make no mistake, are 100% antithetical to what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin was founded on decentralized principles. CBDCs have the word centralized in the very name. So when you see a politician coming out in favor of CBDCs, either one, you can give them the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, they probably just don't know any better. Or two, you can come out and say, they're probably for making the government even bigger and taking financial sovereignty away from me and putting it in their hands so that they can go and make more money and make their government bigger. Or two, you can also watch out for these other politicians that are going to come out and say, hey, we want to help Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies grow because that's what's going to be good for our constituents. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are decent politicians in this world. You just have to have some kind of filtering mechanism to see which one's which, and Bitcoin does a wonderful job at that. Tim, do you have any final thoughts on this?
Man, I think that's good. I think it's time to wrap that one up. We have a couple things. We have some super chats to read. We have the HODL trophy to give our votes on for Friday. Those of you who are watching, it just dipped a little bit more, but Bitcoin was getting very close to 30,000 here just a second ago. Even more so, Cardano rallied all the way up over 62 cents. It's down to 61.7 now. We're starting to get a little bit of relief, but the market is moving at the moment, which will make things really interesting. I wasn't here Friday. Who won Friday? Smay won?
I did. I won.
Well, guess what, Smay? That means you get to vote first, and then Jebb, and then I will wrap it up.
This is wonderful. I completely forgot it was Tuesday today.
And then guess what? You get to vote on this fly, and we have to stay $500 away from you.
Can you pull up that chart again so I can see it?
Which one do you want?
The Bitcoin chart. Well, no, I want to see the Cardano chart real quick.
It's not like you make your predictions based off the charts anyway.
Right,
that's true.
See. I want to see the chart real quick.
This is accurate, Smay.
Let me go with, I'm going to say 28.5.
28.5. My man's a bear this week.
My man's a bear.
All right. What you got, Jebb?
29.
That makes it super easy for me.
Wait, isn't it within 1,000?
Within
500.
500.
That makes it super easy for me to say 29.5. And then I can just take everything over the top.
Oh.
And I think I was more tempted to say, I'll be fair to you, Jebb. I'm going to say 30,005 because that's the number I'm thinking. I'll give you some room.
Let's see if you
I'll
eat
give
those
you
words.
some breathing room. Although that might not be the best tactic. I think if I want to win, I should go 29.5.
No,
I'll say 30,000. I'll be a man of my word and my conviction and say 30,500.
Okay. Sounds good.
So
good deal. Well, guys, kind of the point we're trying to make here is, number one, Bitcoin is becoming a populist voting issue. And there are a lot of different politicians that are going to come out in favor of it in a huge way during the next bull market because they're going to see, hey, wow, I have 30% of my constituents own Bitcoin and they all want more. And the people that don't own it is just because they don't understand it yet. That it's going to become a big populist voting issue. And it is also a litmus test for who wants to take financial sovereignty from you and who wants to place it in your hands. So pay close attention to who is on the side of Bitcoin and who is on the side of CBDCs. Because if they're trying to push something that is centralized on you in the cryptocurrency industry, either one, they could be genuinely misinformed. I like giving people the benefit of the doubt unless they've proven that they shouldn't have it. But two, it is also possible that they just want to put more power back into the hands of their government, of our government, and take the financial sovereignty from you in the same way that our governments have done for thousands of years, and it has never ended well for the individual. So make sure you're paying close attention to who stands for Bitcoin and who doesn't. It is going to become one of the biggest political issues within the next 10 years. You can quote me on that. Guys, do we have any final thoughts from either of you guys here before we wrap it out?
3 super chats real quick. We'll be
brief.
brief.
Yeah, super chats.
Matt C said, Jebb, what do you think about the SEC's largest target, or the latest target, Binance? Are they going after everyone so they can set precedent before crypto gets too big to rein in? Also, Tim, rock, paper, scissors for the large room. We'll see, Matt. That seems like a trivial way to make that decision. Yeah.
Binance is going to have a lot of issues being labeled as a security. I'm not saying they are a security. I'm not saying they're not. But considering it as a coin with their name on it that was issued by them and its value is tied to the success or failure of their company, then yeah, they're going to come under a lot of securities questions from the SEC. I can't tell you which direction that case is going to go. I'm not a securities lawyer. I couldn't tell you if it is a security or not, but I do have my concerns about it. It's part of the reason I'm not invested in Binance is because I have a concern about it potentially being labeled a security. This is not a surprise to me at all. I was worried about this a year and a half ago when Binance coins started becoming a big deal. So, yeah, I am concerned about that. We'll be watching that.
Wisely T said, have you seen Lines Go Up, or Line Goes Up by Dan Olson on YouTube?
I have not.
Sorry. Last one, Simpleman699 said, hey, Jebb, please, can you look into Coin Metal and give me your TA for Metal one of these days? I hear very good things about Metal. Regards, Simpleman699.
We might be able to do that. I remember Metal from a very long time ago. It used to be back in 2017. I believe it was in the top 10. It hasn't really done a whole lot since 2017, so maybe it's 193 on CoinMarketCap. So to be honest with you, I don't know if we'll ever make a video on that, but I'm not saying never. So we shall see on that.
That is it. That's what we got.
Good deal, guys. We're going to wrap out the stream. If you enjoyed today's show, make sure, one, to go subscribe to Frankie Candles. He's growing very quickly. He's been on YouTube for 4 months, and he's got almost 17,000 subs. Make sure to go check him out over at his channel. You can find that at the top of the description box down below. Smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Also, make sure to stay tuned for more Club DeFi updates. Those will be coming out over the next couple of weeks. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media, at CryptoJebb over on Instagram and Twitter, and at CryptoJebbOfficial over on TikTok. Before I go, though, guys, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Oh, I got a real good feeling.